Currently, there's a video revealing buried secrets of Windows PC's battery life. I mean, someone's analysis of laptop battery life. Honestly, to some extent we agree. That Windows PC indeed needs to prolong battery life. Most of the hype of over 10-hour battery life, truthfully, is fake. Then how Windows laptop extend its battery life? Honor has recently launched a MagicBook 14 Ryzen with OS Turbo technology to improve the performance of battery. We ran a test of his battery life, including that reliable test method. So, how's the battery life of this laptop? And besides the battery life, what else is it worth testing? After this video, you will find the answer. As usual, first let's take a look at the specs. CPU, AMD 76800H, 8 cores, 16 threads, has a 680mm ZigPoo in it, brand new Arduino architecture. Soldered RAM, 16GB, Elder 5640 ohms. SSD, Micron 2450, PCIe 4, OX4. It's the same screen of Intel's, which is a 14 IPS panel of 2160 x 1440 resolution, 100% Shree color gamut, and 60 Hz refresh rate. Glass filmed all over, so classy. Reference price, I'll put it on screen, and here you go. Among so many specs, its battery capacity is the most striking thing. 75Wh battery won't be considered as large for a gaming laptop, but for a 14 Ultrabook, it's not a small one, especially when there's no obvious weight or thickness increase. Enhanced capacity will certainly guarantee a long battery life. As a rule, we first use PC Mark X to test the battery performance. Modern office scenario, 120 nit screen brightness. Wi-Fi off, a battery actually lasts 15 hours and 45 minutes. This result might be plain compared to that of last year, but this year, when most laptops shorten their battery life, it's rare to have 15 hours battery life. Frankly, not only the Ryzen version, the Intel version we tested before also has a satisfying performance, which reaches up to 13 hours. How does it achieve that? All owes to Honor's new OS Turbo technology. To figure out what this technology has done in plugged-in and unplugged situations, we ran the PC Mark X Modern Office test separately. Here we can see, when it's plugged in, CPU has a really crazy performance where it maintains between 4.5 to 4.6 GHz. CPU's package power goes super wildly at this time, reaching 16W on average. While opening an application, it usually jumps to 50W. When we unplug the laptop and run it again, it has a very different result. We can find from the performance monitor that, when it's unplugged, the original 4.6 GHz CPU clock speed is limited between 1.5 and 2.5 GHz, except that CPU jumps for a few seconds. When running applications, in most cases it keeps the package power low to decrease CPU clock speed. We also compared the power consumption curves. Obviously, when it's unplugged, the average CPU package power is only 5.8 W. This is how it saves power. From here, I have a question in my mind. Is the power-saving feature born with the AMD CPU, or is it an improvement under Honor's OS Turbo? So, I tentatively exited the Honor Computer Butler and ran the same test again. Guess what? The OS Turbo actually works its magic. Without the butler, CPU has a wild dispatch, which basically remains at 2.7 GHz and barely lowers to 1.5 GHz, the battery saver mode. At the same time, to feed the performance, the clock speed often bounces over 4.0 GHz. The dispatch rule doesn't change much from the state where it's plugged in. Compare the package power charts. In this case, we can see average CPU package power has come to 8.1 W, 2 W more than when the butler was on, although the final benchmark dropped less than when it's plugged in, without power supply. CPU has been activated, hence the power increased. It's a burden to prolong the battery life. Here you might say, PC Mark X battery load is pretty low, mostly with small apps. And most of the time, the computer hardly works, nearly left unused. There's no way to tell how long the laptop will really last. We are certainly aware of this. So we cooperated with Geek to launch a set of battery lifetime simulation for daily use. The test contains applications mostly used in Ultrabook, like 3 office tools, browser, chat app, and music player. But it'll stress out a lot, like the brightness raised from 120 nit, recommended by PC Mark X, to the more down-to-earth 200 nit. And settings are individualized, like playing music in background and staying connected. The website contents on the browser are well selected. Most of them are home pages that occupy CPU a lot. For Ultrabooks, frequent loading of web ads is power-consuming. Well, according to the early result. Under this kind of grueling test, laptops like X13 Plus and X13 experience a drastic decline in battery life due to the improvement of chip and dispatch. MacBook greatly exceeds Windows PC on battery life, but is it really that bad? I'm definitely unconvinced. Let's go a few rounds with the Honor MagicBook 14 Ryzen Edition. With same brightness of 200 nits, same setting and network environment, a test started from PM and kept up until around 12 at night. It ran for totally 9 hours before it shut down. That's twice the time of XPS 13 Plus. Well, this performance, I think, is what a Windows laptop should have. 9 hours for daily use with network connection. On-stop working, from duty on to duty off. For most office workers, anxiety for battery life should be minimal. By the way, since you need to work for a long time, you can find a socket halfway through your work, right? Its charger is highly compatible. Besides the 60W PD charger, it's normal to backward compatible with 30W. Unbelievably, 10W Type A to Type C USB, and even 5 volts with 1A can be a charger. Outrageously, can charge with a power bank. Just a bit slowly. A last laptop with such remarkable compatibility, Zen 1 Mac. Windows laptops are starting to support this feature. Can charge even with a power bank. I don't think the battery life will be a problem. If you have to, stubbornly compare it with Mac based on battery life. The x86 chip honestly can't save that much power. Mac's chip consumes less than 1W when standby. Software also has specific improvements. There are no web ads, but enough components. That's an absolute win. A long battery life in daily use is reasonable. But don't forget the unique advantages of Windows, which is compatibility. I can give a most simple example. Does Geeker1 love to test Genshin Impact? Can you play Genshin Impact on the MacBook with long battery life and kick-ass performance? What? There still isn't a Mac version? Now you can only play Genshin Impact on cloud? Come on, look at me. Go straight into the official website, download, install, without any let-up, open the app, easily enter the game you're familiar with. The rest of the story, we just go with 10 pulls at a time. We selected the map of Liu Harbor as the test scenario. This scenario can be done with 720p on the phone. As a PC, it must work it to its advantage. We keep the test resolution at the original 144p. Choose low graphics setting. Look, 60 Fps, smooth, easy win. If it's so good when plugged in. And we know that. Without power supply, the performance is restricted. Then will the game frame rate be restricted? Keeping the Genshin Impact on, we pull the plug and run one more round. Unexpectedly, it's still 60 Fps on average. It was just a little bump when I unplugged. Really? Seems like the low graphic quality doesn't stress the Arduino IGPU at all. Let's go further. Still without power supply, we set the graphic quality up to medium. The frame rate does change a little bit, with a minimum of 32 Fps and 51 Fps on average. It's kind of playable. If you go further up to the best graphic quality, you'll only get an average of 40 Fps. The lowest frame rate drops to around 20. Clearly, it's too harsh for an IGPU to handle the best graphic quality. The Genshin Impact has some requirements for specs, but the current performance is very okay, I think. After all, we tested the i7 Ultrabook with the same resolution, but the low graphic quality couldn't even stabilize at 60 Fps. The ability to handle medium graphic quality of this laptop is totally beyond my expectation. So, what makes this IGPU so powerful? The biggest change from the previous generation is the architecture change from the old GCN to the new Arduino 2. I don't need to tell you how awesome this Arduino 2 architecture is. With it, Lisa Su makes 6900XT neck and neck with 3090 in the new Ryzen 6000 series processor. The 680 meters IGPU displays the new architecture. Graphic performance is bound to improve dramatically. Specs: it has 12 execution units, 768 stream processors, and the frequency reaches 2200 MHz. The core has caught up with the entry-level DJU. IGPU shares RAM with RAM. This time, AMD 6000U is upgraded to LPDDR5. The frequency of MagicBook 14 Ryzen is also the highest, 6400 MHz. It's totally a premium plus an original version. Benchmark: 3D Mark Time Spy scores 2463, Firestrike Extreme scores 3478, and Superposition 1080p scores 1513. That's outrageous. It steadily outperforms Intel's IGPU performance and has already caught up with DJU. Lisa Su's Arduino 2 is quite aggressive. It's not only going to defeat the peers, but also want a piece of Jensen Huang's pie. We further tested it with regular games. Single-player games: Shadow of the Tomb Raider, original resolution. The best setting can run up to 25 Fps, and even up to 34 Fps with 1080p. Holy crap, remember it's IGPU. I can't believe the frame rate runs at server level with ultra setting. If it degrades to the low or medium setting, it'll be pretty easy to reach 60 Fps. Let's take it up a notch, shall we? Let's go with Cyberpunk 2077. What? Surprisingly, it can still run with ultra graphic quality. It's so crazy. Well, the frame rate is a bit unsatisfactory, but this is clearly beyond the call of the Ultrabook's duty. We also ran 2 mainstream online games on it. CSGO native resolution 149 Fs, 185.4 Fs under 1080p. .2 native resolution with ultra setting 61 Fs, 69 Fs under 1080p. It should be enough to meet the basic gaming needs, but the frame rate is a bit low. Mainly the CPU drags it down if it's solely used for games. I'd recommend the Intel version with Diju. Besides 3 office tools above, we also tested the general productivity. The scores of 3 Adobe tools are just normal compared to the Diju laptop, but at least it passed the test without errors. When you really don't have a top quality laptop, it'll be perfectly okay to use it as a contingency plan. In other aspects, about the screen and heat dissipation of MagicBook 14, we've thoroughly tested them in the video of Intel version. Overall performance met our expectations. CPU package power can reach 50 W. Surface temperature and noise are ideal for Ultrabook. The glass screen has high brightness and resolution, which is relatively rare in the same price range. Of course, a high refresh rate would be better. After the analysis of battery life and performance, I believe you've had a general idea of the MagicBook 14 Ryzen. Based on the test results, we list 3 pros and 3 cons for your reference. As I see it, the new Ryzen 6000 processor didn't shine in the gaming laptops, but salvaged some pride among Ultrabooks. 6800H's absolute performance isn't as good as 12,700 hours, but with the newly added Ardino IGPU, its graphics performance has considerably improved. Games that used to be impossible to run with IGPU can be played if lower the graphic quality. In general, the CPU performed reasonably well on the Honor MagicBook 14 Ryzen. When the performance is needed, it can reach 50 W with power supply. When battery life is needed, OS Turbo technology makes it last 8-9 hours for daily use. Now, every Ultrabook factory pursues better unplugged performance, but Honor doesn't get itself involved in this turmoil. Instead, it works a lot on reducing travel anxiety. This is fairly grounded. Finally, I'd recommend this Ultrabook to office workers who are concerned about battery life. You may need to travel a lot to meet clients, and it might cost you half a day, since it's hard to find a place to charge on the way. A long battery life would save you a lot of trouble. Alright, that's all for this video. Please hit like and subscribe to our channel. If you want to interact with me every day, please follow us on WeChat official account. I will talk about a laptop there every day. This laptop may be a good deal, maybe not, but all we want is to provide info and guidance. This is Biba Laptops. I'm Juin. See you next time.